write it to reveal who did what to whom. Instead, we wrote the book to convey our inner experiences with MPD. Surprising discoveries, arduous therapy, and a lifetime of coping. For those with MPD, these personal pronouns, I and we, get pretty confusing sometimes. Remember that I told you there were once 11 personalities. Now, I'm proud to say, we have whittled it down to 3 remaining personalities through a process of integration. The 3 who remain, Robert, Bobby, and Wanda, made a joint decision to proceed with this book, and all 3 of us agreed to very clear rules about how it would be written. Since I'm the most outspoken in the group, I get the job of narrator. But don't think for a moment that either Bobby or Wanda is powerless. Quite the contrary. Both are potent personalities, as you will discover. Indeed, we agreed that, to portray accurately our inner divided reality, each of the 11 personalities would speak in his or her own voice. So, in one sense, this book represents 11 autobiographies, but it also seeks to capture the constant inner monologues and dialogues that are common with multiple personality disorder. Life inside the world of MPD is filled with squabbles and power struggles, often over which individual personality will dominate on the outside. Since all of the personalities eventually communicated with Dr. Jeffery Smith, the book also reveals the enormous complexity of conducting therapy sessions with an MPD patient. When Bobby and Wanda first pressured me to narrate this story, I was very reluctant. Imagine the daunting task of narrating the 60-year history of 11 personalities to an outside world filled with people who have never experienced extreme dissociation. Wanda sought to persuade me with quietly passionate pleas. None of the rest of us is a writer. It's a story that should be told. It's 11 personalities in search of one soul. But I think it was Bobby, our naughty imp, who sold me. "Robert, you're such a worrywart," Bobby said with a laugh. "It's not such a big deal. Think of it this way. You're the tour guide on the Starship Enterprise, exploring the farthest reaches of inner space." So we, Bobby, Wanda, and Robert, all decided that this book would not focus primarily on the outer world, which was really quite remote from many of us, but rather on our inner world of severe dissociation. We do not seek to destroy or protect reputations of anyone on the outside, living or dead, but rather to explore the inner MPD psyche that we have occupied. But how can readers possibly believe this story? For a while, we all fretted about this issue. We vowed to tell the story as accurately as we could, letting each personality speak for himself or herself. We carefully corroborated our own recollections with the records and remembrances of Dr. Jeffery Smith in the long therapy process. We cross-checked our memories with several of those close enough to have witnessed our multiple personalities firsthand. Finally, we came to believe that we could do no more than that. The ultimate verdict on credibility will rest with you, the reader, after you have absorbed the story. If this book raises more questions than it answers, then we will consider it a success, as long as the questions are more sophisticated by the end of the book than they were at the beginning. Indeed, it is our hope that you, the reader, will be asking questions throughout, not only about us and our story, but also about yourself and the society in which we all live. Over the past 7 years, I, Robert, have related shortened versions of this story, always on a confidential basis, to roughly 100 people, either individually or in small groups. With few exceptions, the response has been riveted attention, people often nodding their heads affirmatively as I described various personalities or inner episodes. When I have asked why they were reacting so strongly, the response was almost always the same. "I'm nodding because it's my story, too. Don't get me wrong, I don't have MPD, but I can really relate to different inner personae. Unlike people with MPD, I don't have memory blocks between those personae, but I act so differently with different people, in different places, at different times. One person elaborated, "When I have a difficult decision to make, I always convene an inner committee meeting. I allow all parts of me to air opinions. That way I know that all of me owns the decision." I have come to think that a lot of people, possibly all people, have multiple personae. Everyone I know reports feeling differently and acting differently in different places and with different people. Many describe various roles or masks, suggesting that my experience may be an extreme exaggeration of what is normal human behavior. Probably the biggest difference between normal multiplicity and MPD is that most people recall what happens when they move through their array of personae. By contrast, MPD is characterized by rigid memory walls that prevent such recall until therapy begins to break down the barriers. While normal people have multiple personae, they do not suffer from multiple identities. In this sense, the new term, dissociative identity disorder, is more descriptive of what is commonly called multiple personality disorder. So, while acknowledging that my case is extremely rare, maybe the multiple framework is embedded in all human beings. If this unusual tale helps shed some light on what we often call normal human behavior, then I, and we, will feel both gratified and, to be honest, somewhat vindicated. For those who have experienced abuse and dissociation, I hope this story has some special resonance. For me, the hardest thing was not suffering severe trauma, but rather suffering a lifetime of consequences. Finding out what actually happened, understanding the devastating impacts on my psyche, and, hardest of all, trying to rebuild my life based on hope, trust, and love. All of us inside reach out to all those on the outside who have confronted similar challenges in their own lives. But we on the inside hardly have the last word on how those on the outside might find our MPD perspectives useful in their own lives. Unlike Dr. Smith, none of us is a professional psychiatrist, and all of us have been distracted from such outer issues. We have been much too busy trying to put Humpty Dumpty back together again. Section 1. Living in the World, Hiding in a Castle. 1. Bob. I always thought I was real. On a cold, cloudy afternoon in March 1990, driving my black Honda through the spiderweb of highways north of New York City, I had no idea that this day would change my life forever. I was in a funk of a mood, dark and irritable, loathing the meeting with my psychiatrist that lay ahead. 7 months earlier, when I first met Dr. Jeffery Smith, I had real hope that he could cure my spiraling depression and anger. But now, after enduring extensive therapy sessions and a month in a rehabilitation clinic, I felt worse than ever. It was time to break from Dr. Smith. But I realized that cutting off relations with Dr. Smith would be a challenge. He seemed like a genuinely concerned colleague, professional but approachable, a very hard man to dislike. Working from a simple office in an unpretentious modern building, he certainly was not the sort of shrink who siphons off patients' money to pay huge overhead. He dressed in a casually professional way, button-down shirt, plain tie, sport jacket, never offering an imposing image. And unlike any other therapist I had encountered, he conducted our meetings in an easy but attentive style, listening carefully with sharply focused eyes, letting me talk without interrupting, then offering cogent insights rather than psychobabble. I resolved to come right to the point. "Hello," I said as coldly as possible. "We've got to talk." "Yes, Bob," he said quietly. "What's on your mind?" I shut my eyes for a moment, letting the raging frustration well up inside, then stared angrily at the psychiatrist. "Look, I've been religious about this recovery business.